Aamar and His Sister by Ariel Finney. My brother Aamar and I were born to a loving mother and father. We had a great life until our mother was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer and passed away shortly thereafter. Our father struggled to raise 2 children on his own, so he married a woman who wanted our father all to herself. She persuaded our father to kick us out, and he did. Aamar and I were forced to rent our own apartment in the city. He went to work during the day in order to pay the rent and put food on the table, while I stayed home and did housework and prepared the meals. One day, I was walking back from the grocery store when I saw a suspicious bag lying on the sidewalk. I picked it up only to find that it was a large sum of money that someone must have dropped. My jaw dropped and I quickly put it in my coat pocket and rushed back home. When I decided that Aamar was mature enough, I presented the money to him. We used it to purchase the apartment and buy a car. One day, Aamar was swiping through Tinder and found a random young woman to go on a date with. They came back later that night and she stayed over. She stayed in our apartment for the next few weeks, and when I finally told her that it was time to go, she would not leave. She and Aamar had gotten secretly engaged and married. I could not stand this woman. She was always making me look bad in front of Aamar, my own brother. She betrayed me just like how my stepmother betrayed me. Aamar eventually kicked me out of our apartment and shaved my head so that I could never find love. I lived on the streets of the city with the other homeless people. One day, a wealthy businessman tripped over my foot while I was sitting on the sidewalk. He apologized and we began to talk. He took me back to his extravagant condo and I told him my story of how I became a homeless woman with a shaved head. He let me stay and eventually proposed to me and we got married. My new husband had 2 conniving ex-girlfriends that did not like me due to the fact that he chose to marry me over them. When my husband went on a business trip, the ex-girlfriends captured me to put me back on the streets where they thought I belonged. I was pregnant with twins at the time, and I gave birth to 2 baby boys out on the city streets on my own. One of my husband's assistants saw me on the sidewalk one day and he brought me back to the condo where the ex-girlfriends were waiting outside to threaten me. They said that they would tell him that I had gotten pregnant while cheating on him with one of his coworkers. I could not stand this torture anymore, so I left with my children. We moved to a new town, and I found a cheap little home to raise my children in. My husband, on the other hand, finally returned from his business trip to find that I was missing. He contacted my father on Facebook and asked him to help him find me. They went from city to city searching for me when they finally stumbled across my little house. I saw them coming from a distance, so I put on a disguise and welcomed them in. They stayed in my bedroom while I stayed in the other bedroom with my children. I left my laptop open in my room and purposely left the tab open where I wrote the story of my life. They read it and realized who I was. My father felt so guilty that he committed suicide right there. My husband took me back to the condo with our children, and he got a restraining order against his ex-girlfriends. We lived happily ever after.